This is Don't Believe the Hype. I'm Maurice. We got Marcus here. We're
What's
doing a
going
little
on?
different this week. Again, this is the good, the bad, the ugly of fantasy sports, and this will be the first show of the season. This is week 2. All right. So before we start week 2, we want to just do a recap of what happened last week. Marcus, who did you like last week?
Man, I on my teams I had a lot of LaShawn McCoy and Todd Gurley. So I must say that those two definitely held me down from the running back standpoint. Quarterback, I like Tyrod a lot. I had Tyrod in my lineups as well because of the mobile aspect and the fact that they were playing against the Jets. I actually like the Rams defense. The Rams defense, along with Jacksonville, if you had them in your lineup from a fantasy or a DFS standpoint, they definitely gave you close to 30, if not 30 points altogether because they had touchdowns. They had pick sixes, and they had a fumble recovery in the Jacksonville game, returned for a touchdown as well. Tight end was kind of a toss-up. I know Charles Clay had a good game. Jesse James caught 2 touchdowns for the Steelers.
Yeah.
And of course, Antonio Brown had 11 catches for $182. The kid Galladay, the rookie from Detroit, had 2 scores. I mean, it was all over the place week 1, which is to be expected from week 1. You know, you never know who's going to give you the points. It may not be your regulars. It may be a rookie that shines. It may be the third receiver that shines on a team. It could be anybody. Also, the kid from Chicago, Tarek Cohen. I think he might end up coming on and being a PPR nightmare, as well as, you know, he might vulture a touchdown or 2 on the ground from Jordan Howard. So those are the guys I like. How about you guys?
Yeah. Well, I got to get some love to the West Coast, you know, specifically Kansas City Chiefs. Thursday night, they actually kicked off the season going against the Patriots. And I'm not going to lie to you. I thought the Patriots, Tom Brady, and all of his weapons were going to just steamroll over the Chiefs defense.
Right.
But what I left with was I was very impressed with Alex Smith's game. And we already know he had a lot of pressure on him with Pat Mahomes being drafted.
Right.
We were hearing out of camp that, okay, he was going to push the ball. He was going to take risks. He was going to, you know, go throw down the field. And I figured, well, hey, he didn't do that in 10 years.
Right.
Well, however long he's been in the NFL, I didn't think one off season was going to change it, but he proved us wrong. And I don't know if it was just week 1 and then just the adrenaline was flowing, or if this is going to be the new and improved Alex Smith. And I know Alex Smith is one of your guys because he's been on a couple of your fantasy football teams. So I know that you probably was happy with the performance that you saw from him. But for me, one of the things that impressed me most was also my biggest disappointment. I spent the whole offseason telling anybody that would listen to me that Kareem Hunt was going to be the man this year. And to make matters worse, I even said this was even before Spencer Ware got hurt.
Right.
Because I like to find those gems. And once Spencer Ware got hurt, I said, okay, this guy's going to come in and he's going to be a RB1. You know, honestly, it's like a plug and play for the Chiefs. Andy Reid can just find that guy. He did it with Spencer Ware last year.
Right.
Jamal Charles has done it. Even going back to the Brian Westbrook days.
Kendrick West.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So, I mean, it's like, you know, press play and just spin, and it happens. But I was a little disappointed, and I actually I mentioned it to Dwayne, you know, that at 3:00 that morning, I woke up just to check the scores and see how good Kareem Hunt did or didn't do. I was actually hoping he didn't do that well, just because like I said, I don't own him in any of my leagues because he just went too early before I got a chance to take him. I saw he had over 40 points, and I stayed up the rest of that day. I couldn't go back to sleep, so I just stayed up. I started preparing my lines for week 1, which again, even that extra time and preparation really didn't help that well. But it really kind of threw me off a bit.
Right.
Another thing that I was shocked about week 1 was Tom Brady's performance. If you would have told me that, hey, a quarterback in that game would have threw for 350 plus yards and 4 touchdowns, I would have put everything in my pocket that it was Tom Brady, but it wasn't. So
I know as far as the disappointments, I would have to say, and it's to be expected, I would say Cam coming off the surgery on his shoulder.
Right.
I mean, I was able to catch different, clips of the game, and every time he threw a pass, they would cut back to him, and it seemed as if he was still trying to work out his shoulder. He underthrew Kelvin Benjamin on a deep ball, and I'm surprised because Cam has one of the strongest arms in the league when it's, fully healthy. And to be honest, I mean, the touchdown pass he threw to the kid's name, Randall, I think it was from Carolina. It was a duck. Like the ball just sat up there forever, and it wobbled. And I mean, it just so happened that San Francisco had blown coverage on that, allowing him to get the touchdown. But some of his throws, it was off. And I mean, they tried to force feed Christian McCaffrey a lot. He danced way too much for me in the backfield before he can even get upfield. I'd also have to say Mariota from Tennessee kind of disappointed me. I mean, I'm an Oakland fan, so I'm happy that Oakland got the win.
Right.
But I mean, it's to be expected that Tennessee was going to be a high-powered offense, and they kind of came out looking flat. But at the same time, I mean, I'm cautioned with the fact that it's week 1.
Right.
So, I mean, the Giants looked a mess from top to bottom. They need to pay Odell all the money that he wants. Cincinnati looked a mess. Well, Andy Dalton looked a mess. Everybody else looked okay, but Andy Dalton looked a mess.
Right.
I guess Flacco. But, hey, I mean, you got guys that haven't really thrown a live pass to a receiver until now.
Right.
So it's best to just temper your expectations. I mean, Houston looked awful. I mean, not a lot of teams looked really good from beginning to end, but a lot of teams basically showed you that, hey, it's week 1 and we'll get it together by then. So, I mean, just take it with a grain of salt and just move on to week 2 as far as, constructing your lineups and such.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think part of it, like you said, week 1 is always that, just kind of shaking the rust off.
Yeah.
In particular because these guys aren't even playing a quarter. Some of them are playing a half of preseason ball. Right. And in Flacco's case, he didn't play at all. So he didn't get a chance to get any kind of chemistry, build any kind of rapport with his receivers and those new weapons, Jeremy Maclin,
exactly.
That he had there. So it's understandable. We'll give him week 1. I didn't do anything crazy as far as dropping a ton of players except for Eddie Lacy. I dropped Eddie Lacy in every league that I had him in, and I was actually mad that I drafted him. But it is what it is. So I mean, honestly, I think that's enough talking on week 1. Before we get to week 2, I think it would be good to just kind of touch on the top waiver picks. So did anyone stand out to you as far as who needs to be on your team going into week 1 that might be on the free agency wire?
I would say I have maybe a handful, but I would have to go with a guy who didn't necessarily touch the ball a lot, and that would be Andre Ellington from the Arizona Cardinals. And I say that because David Johnson is going to be out for an extended period of time with a wrist injury. So I'm not sure if Bruce Arians decides that he wants to be a full-on passing aerial attack, because he tried it against Detroit and Carson Palmer threw pick after pick after pick.
Right.
So they're going to need some balance. They signed Chris Johnson again to be a backup, but I think the pick here is Andre Ellington. He can catch out the backfield. He can run the ball. Before they drafted David Johnson, Andre Ellington was the guy. I would also say Tariq Cohen from the Bears. To me, they're gonna need lightning to Jordan Howard's thunder. So it makes sense to get this guy. He's a PPR dream if they use him properly.
Right.
I'm sure Mike Glenn is going to check down a lot in that offense. They lost a receiver and Cameron Meredith. They lost another receiver to an injury as well. So it's probably best that they use this guy, put him in the slot, put him in the backfield, just try to, I guess, use him like Andy Reid uses Tyreek Hill. I also like Allen Hurns from Jacksonville. Allen Robinson's out with a blown out knee. Bortles will throw the ball from time to time. He didn't necessarily need to throw it against Houston because the defense did the majority of the work. And also, this is a super, super duper dark horse right here, and that would be Cooper Kupp from the Rams, the LA Rams. Goff is going to need targets. They're kind of phasing out Tavon Austin, and they drafted this receiver pretty high to be their slot guy. And it's crazy that he beat out Tavon Austin for that job, which means he does have hands. He caught a touchdown against Indy in week 1. Jared Goff is going to need some guys he can trust. And along with Todd Gurley, along with Sammy Watkins, who probably draw a lot of the attention as far as the receiver core goes, Cooper Kupp will probably be a low-key guy to get and probably still can get him now. I doubt people will put waiver claims in on him. I was able to snatch him up after the waiver process hit, which means I could just add someone and drop someone instead of using my waiver claim on someone.
Right.
How about you guys?
Actually, and I'm glad you mentioned Cooper Kupp because I was very impressed with his week 1 performance, but I actually was impressed with his preseason performance as well. But I tried to, temper my expectations with him because, again, he's a rookie wide receiver.
Right.
And I remember how giddy I got for Tajay Sharp last year. Tajay Sharp was catching any and everything that Mariota threw his way.
And he did it in college.
Right. And I said, you know what? I said, he did it at UMass. He went to UMass, right?
Right.
He did it at UMass. And said, I said, you know what? He might be another Victor Cruz. UMass. Victor Cruz went to UMass undrafted, and he had that big off season. And then he just became the guy down at New York.
Right.
So I had Kupp in a few of my lineups, and then at the last minute I yanked him. I took him out. But what you have to understand, and I want everyone to understand as far as what's different between him and some of the other rookies coming in. You're typically coming in as a 21-year-old rookie. This guy's 24 years old. He's a very polished receiver coming up right out the box. So I wouldn't be surprised. Now again, to me, the top rookie wide receiver is Corey Davis,
right,
in Tennessee. But I would not be surprised if Cooper Kupp did not lead all rookie wide receivers in receptions. So he is definitely someone to keep an eye on, and if he is still available on your waiver wire, especially if you're in the 12 and 14 team league, definitely pick him up. If you're in the 8 team, 10 team, he could probably stay there for a while because he's not going to start over anyone on your team. But in the deeper leagues, definitely give him a look. Also, I would say the Arizona Cardinals defense. They were unimpressive last week, but they play the Indianapolis Colts, aka Gardnerville 9/11. So if you have a chance to pick them up, that would be a good defense to stream. And actually, I kind of have my strategy where I like to take a kicker in a certain round, a defense in a certain round. But if you chose to stream your defenses this year, one team that you want to attack before Andrew Luck comes back will be the Indianapolis Colts. So look ahead and see who's on his Colts schedule for at least the next couple of weeks, and that will be a defense to target until he comes back.
Exactly. Well, speaking of defenses, let me ask you about your approach to picking a defense for not just your DFS lineups, but your season-long fantasy. Now, what I tend to do is attack the weakest offense from week to week and then try to locate that defense. So for example, what I did week 1 on my season-long team, the Rams defense was sitting out there on waivers.
Mm-hmm.
And once the news came down that Andrew Luck wasn't playing week 1 and that they were going with Scott Tolzien, I played the Rams because I felt that the Colts had the weakest offense by them not having a top 10 quarterback, in my opinion, Andrew Luck under center. And it paid off for me. This week they have Arizona, a pissed off Arizona defense who got carved up by Matt Stafford, overpaid Matt Stafford, but that's another topic for another day. So what I tend to do is try to find the weakest offense. Maybe whoever's playing the Texans right now, you know, they're going through issues.
Right.
So how do you go about it? Do you take the dominant defense and just put them out there week to week, or do you find the weakest offense and try to find the defense that's going against them?
Yeah. Well, I like to start by picking a dominant defense, but I don't just stop there. I want to pick a dominant defense that's going to be an opportunistic defense that will have a chance to get turnovers that will possibly lead to touchdowns. So whether that's a defense that will get pick sixes or safeties, fumble recoveries. But like I said, I like to have both a dominant defense that gets turnovers. So a defense like the Philadelphia Eagles would not necessarily qualify because although they do get turnovers, they have one of those bend but don't necessarily break defenses that they're going to give up yards, they're going to give up points. So for me this year, I went out on faith, and I like to usually pick Minnesota. The last couple of years, I went with them. I do have them in one league, but I chose to go with Jacksonville. I pretty much put majority of my chips on Jacksonville for the year, and I played them in every one of my FanDuel lineups this week, last week. And again, here's why. The last 2 years, they have spent a ton of money in high draft picks constructing that defense.
Right.
Last year, drafting Jalen Ramsey in the first round, Miles Jack, signing the defensive tackle from Denver, Malik Jackson. Right. Last offseason. This offseason, Calais Campbell, who was the defensive player of the week with 4 sacks.
Right.
And they spent the money on AJ Bouye from Houston. So they had the blueprint in place. This defense was going to get turnovers. And then, hey, it helped that they played Houston week 1.
Right.
And I knew Tom Savage, Fred Savage, Ben Savage, it didn't matter.
Macho Man,
right.
Rest in peace.
Savage, it did not matter. Whoever they threw in there was getting sacked and wrapped, and they were going to the sideline. So I was really excited to see Jacksonville do so well. And in DraftKings, Jacksonville actually was priced the way they should have been. They were priced higher. And so I actually looked at, like you said, the Rams,
right,
who did better than anyone they could have possibly expected. And also I looked at the Chargers. The Chargers didn't do as well as I wanted them to do. Right. But if anyone that played in the primetime lineup, that was the defense that I looked for, that after 4 o'clock game lineup, and they did okay. Okay.
I think between the 4 teams that went against each other on Monday Night Football, I think the Chargers had the most points, I want to say, because I had them on both my teams. And I know Denver, I believe Denver maybe had like 7 or 8 defensive points, depending on, I know FanDuel. I was on FanDuel. I believe you were on DraftKings. So
right.
The Chargers gave me 9 FanDuel points.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and they did fine, but I actually had them projected a little higher, especially going against the Denver defense that's a little slow with C.J. Anderson, and even though they have 2 great outside, a great outside receiver in Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, they don't have a good quarterback to get them the ball. So I just went with that approach.
Right.
Also, I wanted to, I know that you're an Oakland Raiders fan, and I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the new kicker? And do you think he's going to take Seabass's job?
First off, I think Seabass's injury is a shame. Because initially they wanted to take a pay cut.
Right.
He refused.
Right.
And they thought about cutting him.
Right.
And then somehow they were like, okay, we'll leave the situation alone. And then mysteriously, he ends up on short-term injured reserve with an injured back. However, when the new kid, Tavecchio, booted this 53-yard field goal, Janikowski, to send him to halftime, Janikowski was one of the first guys who ran into the tunnel with a bad back. But, you know, I don't want to play conspiracy theorist or anything like that. However, I think if he continues to kick the ball the way he is, the way he did first week, you know, on the road, kind of thrust it into the role, didn't really have time to prepare for a regular season kick opportunity. And he held his own. He completed every last one of his kick attempts. And I think they may be pushing Janikowski out the door. You know, they're trying to be respectful about it. They're not trying to go about it the old Raider way where, you know, they just cut guys who giving them a lot of good years, you know.
Right.
So I guess injured reserve is the first way to go. He'll be back after the 7th game or 6th game. It should be interesting to see how they approach it. But I think as of right now, given the offense that Oakland has, I think he is somebody that you may want to consider if you're in a bind for a kicker.
I agree with you. And so we don't know if Seabass is really injured or not. But I also thought it was kind of odd as well, because that they were going over, you know, him taking the pay cut, and then all of a sudden he's not taking the pay cut, but then he's hurt. So you know, but okay, Seabass, just get yourself together so that way it could be a good kicking competition. I mean, honestly, that's one of the best offenses in the league. So whoever's kicking for that team is going to get some points. All right, so we talked about week 1, talked about some waiver pickups. We need to talk about week 2, man.
Absolutely. Right. Another week to make some money. And I want to lay it out there right now. Mm-hmm. My favorite play of the week is a rookie. Mm-hmm. Rookie wide receiver. Rookie running back. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Leonard Fournette. So I'm going all in on Leonard Fournette, LSU product. At first, when he was drafted by Jacksonville, I wasn't a big fan of the move because I thought they had a capable back in T.J. Yeldon. Mm-hmm. Now, by no means am I comparing T.J. Yeldon to Leonard Fournette. Mm-hmm. But I thought they had a capable back in T.J. Yeldon, and they also had Chris Ivory. Mm-hmm. So I figured, okay, well, is this going to be a crowded backfield like we see in Seattle and that we see in Cincinnati, or is this guy going to be the true bell cow? Week 1, they showed, hey, this is his team. But the reason I like Jacksonville is because they're going to keep the ball out of Blake Bortles' hands. So as long as they're doing that, you know, it's going to be more or less game management. We're going to win with the run and the defense. Right. That was originally what attracted me to Leonard Fournette. But when you add in the fact that, hey, Allen Robinson is out for the year, so and they're playing Tennessee, who Jonathan Cyprian, who is a safety but deep linebacker, if you want to consider, he's out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So this is the same Tennessee Titans team that let Marshawn Lynch come out of retirement and average 4 yards a carry last week. No offense to Marshawn Lynch, how do you feel? But he can't look. He literally took off his warm-up suit and just started running. So if he was able to do that, you know, and Leonard Fournette touched the ball almost 30 times last week. Right. And that was with Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson, they're going to have to give him the ball even more. So even if he just gets the ball 20 to 27 times, I think he's going to find the end zone twice. If he finds the end zone twice, gets the ball 20 to 25 times, he's going to be the top running back for this week coming up. So that's my guy. I know everybody is kind of flocking towards New England because of a pissed off Tom Brady going to New Orleans. We seen what Sam Bradford did to that defense.
Right.
And it makes sense. It really does make sense. I also can see, you know, people maybe wanting to probably stack Amari, Derek Carr, Crabtree, maybe even Jared Cook going against that Jets defense. But me personally, and I think this may be a sneaky play, I can kind of see my favorite play being Carson Palmer, Larry Fitzgerald, John Brown. And that's because the Colts let Jared Goff go off on them. He threw for 300 yards in his first game of the season against a Colts defense that didn't have or doesn't have Vontae Davis, their top corner. And when he's at full strength, he can put the clamps on a receiver.
Right.
Not named Antonio Brown.
Right. Right. So
in this situation, I kind of like a pissed off Arizona offense to just light it up against Indianapolis. And I like them to get prime opportunities because I feel like their defense is going to force turnovers, sort of like the Rams did Sunday. I do like your pick about Leonard Fournette. I think they're trying to hide the fact that Blake Bortles is still struggling throwing the ball. So they're just going to keep force feeding Leonard Fournette. I mean, they have no choice.
Right.
It's kind of like the Ravens defense of the early 2000s where, you know, it was average quarterback play, but the defense and the run game basically was winning them that Super Bowl and was getting them to the playoffs.
Right.
I kind of do like the Ravens offense. I know they're still trying to get up to speed with Flacco.
The Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the home opener. They don't have Joe Hayden as a corner anymore. They're still trying to figure things out in Cleveland. I think the defense, the Ravens defense, you see what they did to not necessarily a legit quarterback, but a veteran quarterback, Andy Dalton. They could probably do more damage against a rookie quarterback in Deshaun Kaiser. So those are my top plays. Arizona receivers, Leonard Fournette, Ravens receivers, primarily Jeremy Maclin. And defense, Arizona defense. I kind of wouldn't go back to the well on the Rams defense because Kirk Cousins is a okay quarterback. I mean, he kind of sabotaged that game last week for them with his quarterback play. But those are my top plays.
Okay. I want to kind of go back to the two games that you mentioned. I know a lot of people are going to be on the Patriots bandwagon to get back. And like you mentioned Tom Brady, but let's not forget that this is the Brandon Cooks revenge game.
Yeah.
So just off of the fact of how the Patriots operate, they don't need bulletin board material.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of created themselves, and so I feel like the narrative is there and it's strong enough that after a big loss on primetime TV, I think they're going to come out, and I think Brandon Cooks is going to get the ball. He's going to get the ball early and often. Now, I think Tom Brady's going to have a really good game too, and he's going to spread the ball around. Hogan, Amendola, Gronk, whole crew. I think there's going to be a little added motivation for Brandon Cooks, especially since they're playing in New Orleans.
Right.
If they were playing at home, okay, but this is home for the last few years. 8 or 9 catches, 100 yards, a touchdown or 2 is not out of the question for Brandon Cooks.
Absolutely, and we see what the Vikings were able to do against that secondary. Stephon Diggs scored 2 scores, almost had 100 yards, and Adam Thielen had 100. No, he had 120 plus receiving yards. And Kyle Rudolph, the tight end, caught a touchdown. Dalvin Cook had a good game as well, and Sam Bradford threw for 340, I believe. So,
yes,
it's kind of shaping up to be a trap meet. I mean, New England's defense is a little bit suspect as well. They let Alex Smith go off on a Thursday night game, so I'm sure Drew Brees can kind of at least make it entertaining from that standpoint. So, I mean, hey, if you can fit Drew Brees and a couple of those receivers on your roster as well, by all means, go ahead and go for it.